Ladies and gentlemen, there was a time when people made YouTube videos with the reckless pretension that they were trying to save the world. And I miss those days. I really do. I miss those days when it was considered shocking and insulting to say that someone was just making YouTube videos for money. Can anyone else remember that? How dare you? How dare you say I'm just doing this for money? I'm trying to change the world. And, as cynical and saddening a figure as Vegan Gains now is, can you remember? Can you remember a time when he made YouTube videos criticizing the religion of Islam? When he made deadpan serious videos criticizing Islam and propounding atheism? And can you remember when he deleted those videos? When he took them down to avoid being censored or suppressed by YouTube. When he decided to throw all of his, time and effort and energy into doing completely idiotic video game commentary and, quote unquote, debates, so on and so forth. When you're looking at the career, the meteoric and influential career of Vegan Gains, you're looking at a phenomenon that partly charts the meteoric rise and fall of the vegan movement itself, say 2014 to 2021. And you're also looking at a phenomenon that charts the rise and fall of YouTube, right? Like a lot of the distinctive features of Vegan Gains' channel in the early popular period of his career, those were also the features of YouTube as a whole platform, right? And how did it come tumbling down? So I got to disclose my bias here, guys. I'm happy to talk to anyone in the audience. Vegan Gains. He and I knew each other. We spoke personally for a couple of years. He's now threatened everyone with a cage match who's ever criticized him, except me. He's threatened everyone with lawsuits, including me. He's never followed through, even though we're both Canadian citizens. We're both resident in Canada. He's resorted to the lowest order of bullying tactics that he would criticize as immoral in others, but without hesitation, he engages in those things himself. The same thing. So I'll give you a very easily palpable example. We have seen him just in the last few months harshly criticizing another channel for claiming to be vegan while buying meat in order to feed it to her pet dog. Vegan Gains himself did this. It's about 4 years ago now. I remember where we were when I made videos responding. And Richard was still friends with me then. He still talked to me about my perspective on that. It's like, what do you want me to tell you, Richard? Paying someone else to kill an animal so you can feed it to your dog, as opposed to paying them to kill an animal to feed it to yourself. It's no big ethical difference here, guys. Like, I run a factory that kills cows and makes their skin into leather, but I use it to provide shelter for the homeless. Like you make leather tents or something. Guess what? You're still killing cows. There were still more ethical ways to do this. It's ridiculous. So, but that's, it's really beyond hypocrisy. Hypocrisy is just failing to practice what you preach. And this is going to sound weird, guys, but there are a lot of reasons to be a hypocrite. There are a lot of legitimate reasons to be a hypocrite. I have a child. I'm divorced. I have a kid. I might make a video one day encouraging you to sign up and join the army and fight in some war. And I have to say, look, I can't do it. I have other responsibilities. I'm too old or whatever it is. I'm raising a kid. I can't do it, but I'm going to encourage you to sign up and join there. There are reasons to be a hypocrite. What Richard is doing is much worse than hypocrisy. He's engaging in the moral condemnation of someone for a sin, for an action, an unethical act or deed that he is amply guilty of himself. And there's by the way, in those videos, I had to sit through them. There is not one moment of self-reflection. There is not one moment in which he falters and says, you know what, a couple years ago, when he was already a vegan activist, back when he was at the height of his fame, when he had more than 10 times as many viewers per month as he has now, when he was having millions of viewers, but he made the same mistake. He could have said that he made this mistake in the past and he regretted it. And he could even talk through, like sincerely, how he convinced himself that it was morally acceptable to buy meat if he was feeding it to his dog. And maybe he would have even mentioned people like me. I was a friend of his at the time. I was criticizing him at the time. Maybe he would mention that people like me influenced him to change his mind. Nope. There's absolutely no humility. There's no reflection. So you say this is several steps beyond hypocrisy for him to condemn others those way. All right, guys, I'm happy to respond to your comments. Some of you guys, I know there are people where, vegan gains changed their whole lives. I know there are people who discovered my channel and who became vegan and who took on a new direction and did all kinds of things because of Vegan Gains' influence in their life. But, what can I tell you? That doesn't mean he's a good channel. It doesn't mean he's a good creator. It doesn't mean he's someone you should respect or listen to. I said this years ago. I haven't talked about it. I haven't talked about this for years. But, you can change your life because you had a car crash. I think my example, this is close to my experience. You can change your life because you see a car crash on the side of the road. You're not involved, but you stop and you look at it and you think, I got to change my life. What are you going to do? Are you going to buy, a scale model of that car crash and put it on an altar and worship it? Are you going to pray to it? Don't respect the car crash. Carl, I changed my life because of this car crash. Right. Well, you may have changed your life because of Vegan Gains. You may have changed your life for the better. Don't respect Vegan Gains for that reason. Don't look up to him. Anyway, sorry, I was digressing just to say, that I do have this history with Richard, that he and I were friends for a couple of years. He and I did talk. And then when he decided he hated me, you guys, some of you have seen this, some of you remember it. Some of you could go back and see my videos that have some screenshots. Ironically, one of the main ways he insulted me was about the size of my penis. So he made all these comments on the internet. You guys, again, I have screenshots of like a couple of them. I didn't put together a collection, but he was being so morally superior to me because I would talk about the size of my penis on the internet. And by the way, if you've seen the videos where I'm talking about it, I am not ashamed of those videos at all. They're talking about it in a meaningful, nuanced way as part of my life. So just briefly, some of you guys are here for the first time. So someone just asked me in the audience, shout out to the one and only, welcome to the crowd, who asks, are you vegetarian, vegan, or omnivore? So I have been vegan for more than 10 years now. Yeah, this is now 2021. I've been vegan for a very long time. It took me a while to figure out when I became vegan, to be honest with you. But because before I was vegan, I was strictly vegetarian, which was like 95% vegan. Before I was vegan, I was like, I was a vegan, but who would eat pasta that had Parmesan cheese in it. There was like I would ignore dairy in kind of trace amounts of my diet that way. But I didn't buy cheese, or I didn't buy cow milk, or this kind of thing. So even then, the exception was Parmesan cheese. When I was with my ex-girlfriend, she really liked Parmesan cheese, so I have to admit that too. But anyway, I would just say the reason why it's hard to remember is that, starting the year 2000, I was strictly vegetarian. And then at one point I graduated to being 100% vegan. But before that I was 95%. Anyway, sorry, I'm digressing, but welcome to the crowd. I was saying something, penis size. I was saying something really meaningful before that, penis size, right? So, when I made videos talking about this, I wasn't boasting. I wasn't insulting Richard or anyone else. I'm not insulting someone else's sexuality. And I'm not saying my sexuality is so great. Richard is such a shallow person. That's how he responded. Oh, gee, Richard, why do you feel threatened by this? Richard had already talked about his penis size at the time, and he went on to talk about it a lot more, and then he went on to try to monetize it. So in case you didn't know, one of the differences is now Richard has started an OnlyFans. Richard has started making, pornography of himself, showing himself masturbating and so on camera. Now, look, guys, I can imagine a parallel universe where I had no better option than to do porn. I can imagine. I've talked about that with Melissa. So Melissa, we've been together for more than 4 years now, something like 4.5 years. But sometimes I talk about how my whole life could have been different if I'd chosen one of the suitors, one of the women who were pursuing me at that time, other than Melissa. And, some of the things are relatively shallow and minor. Well, so they're actually, to be honest, this is neither shallow nor minor. But I used to do a lot of videos talking about Game of Thrones, the TV show, and the books. The Game of Thrones, George R. R. Martin books. And I can imagine if I'd been with one of those other women, I might have made more videos in that way. If I'd been with one of the other women, I could imagine my channel become more of like a history channel. I could just imagine it kind of going in different directions somewhat because of the woman I'd chosen. But yes, I can absolutely imagine where partly due to poverty, poverty and hopelessness and lack of any better alternative. And because the woman I can totally imagine that I would have ended up on OnlyFans. But unlike Richard, I would not be on an ego trip about it. I wouldn't be on this crazy ego trip. But anyway, yeah, he used to insult me about this. And guess what the difference is now? Richard, just like the thing with buying dead animals to feed your pet dog and justifying it as vegan, it's beyond hypocrisy. Well, guess what, Richard? Now the difference is you boast about the size of your penis, and we know you have nothing to boast about. Like, we know that your penis is just a normal size for a man of 6'3". It's not impressive. If you haven't Googled it yet, you can Google it right now, and you can see he has an average sized penis for a man of 6'3", and it's also ugly and misshapen. I'm just saying, he would never be, cast in a porn movie. And if you look at the websites that are dedicated to, frankly, men who appreciate that kind of porn, I've seen him reviewed where it's a bunch of gay guys sitting around talking about how disappointed they are. Okay, Richard, so, you tried to humiliate me and you tried to play all these games that ultimately come down to shaming someone for daring to talk about this stuff. And sorry, I got to say this, it's worth explaining. When I talked about this, it's to reflect on what I've been through in my life, okay? And, the penis size issue and owning condoms, finding condoms that fit you, yeah, it really screwed up my life at different stages. When I was first losing my virginity, when I was first having sex, and you're trying to use the condom, like, so you're a teenage kid, and even though, like, I didn't grow up in a Christian household, but still, my parents were very screwed up and repressed about sex. They were in a non-Christian way. They were really messed up about it. They were really terrified of, like, teen pregnancy and abortions. They were all messed up. They're left wing, but they were all screwed up with the stuff. They couldn't talk about it. But I think most people, nobody even thinks to talk to a teenage kid about what to do if the condom doesn't fit. Well, guess what? If you are wearing a condom that's too small for you, it basically creates sexual dysfunction. Like, you can't really have an erection. You can't enjoy sex. It's had this huge fucking impact on my life. And it didn't occur to me. So at that time, so again, I'm letting you guys know, this is why I talked about it. When Richard comes out to talk about the size of his penis, he's doing it to insult and humiliate others. He's doing it to boast about how superior he is to you. And then he's doing it to make money out of OnlyFans, again, to promote his fame. And at the same time, he's claiming he's one day going to stand for office. He's going to stand in elections and be erected Prime Minister of Canada. Good one. He's supposedly going to be in elections on the strength of his erections, it's ridiculous. And, anyone can say, I mean, geez, if I'm going to do OnlyFans, do you think I'm good? Like, you got to under promise, over deliver. If I were just saying, if I'm going to go into porn, if I'm going to do OnlyFans, I'm going to be a creative filmmaker. I'm going to try to do something where you respect me for something other than my body. Like, wow, that guy really put some work. I'm just saying, I wouldn't be this lazy, self-indulgent asshole who just films himself masturbating in the bathroom or something. I think he ought to be ashamed of himself as a filmmaker that way too. So within pornography, there's good pornography and bad pornography. You can come up with scenarios that are really psychologically interesting. You can film things in different ways. You can really produce something nobody else is producing that, I think there's a lot of creative, positive stuff you can do in porn. I think I've seen one pornographic film ever that tried to make a political point. I know there are others. I remember reading a newspaper article about this. This is in the normal newspaper, and it was talking about political porn. I had a friend, so I don't want to digress. I had a friend in Toronto. She was Black, and she worked in a porn shop, a shop that sold pornography and also dildos and things. But it was a feminist porn shop. And I remember talking to her about that. I said, well, what about the porn films that are trying to make a point that have some point? And it was an interesting conversation. I don't, just be honest, I don't want to even put the time into watching them. Like, I don't want to spend 3 hours. I don't want to spend 1 hour watching this stuff. Just, I'm not afraid of it, but I don't really want to spend the time looking into that further. But, sure, whether you're passionate about veganism or you're passionate about, you're passionate about religion. That's a great topic. Oh, that'd be a great topic. So Melissa's mentioning the famous porn star Mia Khalifa. If you want to do porn that criticizes religion in general, or, Judaism, Christianity, Islam, I could make great hardcore porn films that were, partly satirizing and partly criticizing religion. Sure. Sorry, now I'm getting into it. But look, so I remember, I've mentioned this before. Back when I was a kid, I once read a magazine article that was interviewing an elderly African-American pimp. So there's a black guy in America who'd been part of the pimping scene back when pimping was really pimping, before the internet, before anything, old school pimp, old school fur coat, walking cane era pimp, you know what I mean? And the interviewer asked him a couple of really broad questions that he had emotionally significant answers to. I remember the interviewer asked him, like, all these pimps talk about the women in their lives, talk about the prostitutes as if they mean nothing to them. Did you ever fall in love with one of your hoes? And he said back, so again, this is in print, so I don't know what's talking about. He said, man, I fell in love with every single one of my hoes. I loved all of them. I loved them to bits. And when they're not around, I miss them. And when one of them walked away and started working with another pimp, I always wondered why. And it would always eat at me. He's talking about, and he's really talking about how he loves these women and how he wants to spend his life with them and he wishes they were still around and stuff. Yeah, I think, a couple of them are, but the point is most of them, he has the sense of having love. He was having this really, emotionally sincere thing. Anyway, and I think that the interviewer just asked some kind of very general question about the competition, about other men. And he said, man, that's why you've got to have love in the game. So this is a memory from 40 years ago or 35 years ago or something. So I'm only 42. But anyway, this is a memory from a long time ago whenever I read this. But, so this is not exact phrasing. But he said, man, that's why you've got to have a love connection with these women. He said, there's always somebody more handsome than you. There's always somebody with more money than you. There's always somebody with a bigger dick than you that can take your hose away. Unless you've got love for them and they've got love for you, unless there's love in the game, unless that's stuff. Wow, But of course it's true. Of course it is true. Richard should have known before he did this, right? Dude, you are not going to be the man on OnlyFans with the largest penis. That is just not going to happen. Nobody is going to gasp in amazement when you finally reveal this penis that you have been boasting about, that you have been building up expectations over so long. It was what he did, right? And then it's the penis finally comes out. It's what he could have done is to impress people and say, he could have come out and said, hey, look, he doesn't have the biggest penis. And of course, he's not the best in bed. I mean, of course, come on. The guy talks openly about his sexual problems. He's obviously a very, very messed up, disabled person in many ways. He talks a lot about his mental disability. He talks a lot about his very strange sexual proclivities and what he can cope with and what he can't. The way in which he's kind of just barely heterosexual and stuff. Okay, but he could have come out and said that he's a creative artist and a filmmaker and he's really going to do something other people can't do. Of course, he also could have, put the emphasis on the fact that he works out in this way, like he's going to lift weights nude or something, like it's going to be about his physique or something. But sure, there are a lot of different ways to approach it, and there are ways to approach it that are humble. Now, look, this is my point. When I made videos talking about my penis size, that Richard hated me for intensely, and for 2 years, he was engaged in a harassment campaign against me and saying all this insulting stuff to me, including by email sent to me directly and public YouTube comments, saying all this stuff about the size of my penis. Dude, when I came out and talked about it, it was humble because I'm talking about the way in which it fucked my life up. I'm talking about what it's like to be a teenage man who at that time I grew up. It's like the peak of the AIDS hysteria. I'm losing my virginity with this girl I'm not really that attracted to, which is how it is for a lot of us. When you're young, you don't really know what you like, or you don't admit to yourself what you like. There are guys who like fat women. It takes them a long time to admit it. Whatever. But my situation with that girl, I've mentioned this before, but really quick. I was at a party where all eyes were on me. You tell me why. I was at this party, I was the most handsome guy, which is whatever. I don't know. Sorry, I'm just saying, I don't know were there 20 guys, 30 guys. It's not a huge party, but all eyes were on me. All the women were at me at this party, really. This is not every party I go to, this particular party. And most of the guys didn't have confidence dancing, and they were playing 1960s soul music. So that was the time when, I'm forgetting the name. There's a really crappy filmmaker who makes these violent movies, Quentin Tarantino. Okay, so there were movies out from Quentin Tarantino, and that brought back an interest in some 1960s and 1970s movies, this kind of soul funk music. And I could really dance to that. And most of the guys who were there couldn't. I don't know if maybe they could dance. I don't know what they could dance to. Maybe they could dance to rock and roll hair metal or something. I don't know, right? But I could really dance the funk and soul at that time. So, and whatever, I'm taller and I'm better looking. All these women are at me. And the chick I wanted, the girl I wanted, was there like the best friend of the girl who got me. There was this girl who really wanted me. And she was like saying to the girls, like, no, none of you can touch him. And she wanted to fuck me today. She wanted to fuck me that night. She wanted to fuck me then. She was trying to take me out and do me like seriously. And I was still a virgin. I was like, I'm not, you know what I mean? I'm not looking to have sex with a complete stranger I met at a party. You know what I mean? I'm not, it's not what I'm on the page for. Anyway, eventually she ended up being the woman who took my virginity. So yeah, what I'm saying is I'm a victim. Feel sorry for me. Anyway, but I wasn't attracted to her. I'm not saying she was ugly. She was totally good looking, whatever. But that's not how human attraction works. Her friend, who also was shorter than her, I've always, okay, look, all kinds of women are beautiful, but like in terms of what's my type, I'm like 6'3" in the morning. I'm 6'2" by sundown. But like normally, I do not want to be with a woman who's also 6 feet tall. If you're out there, ladies, I'll make an exception. I mean, you know what I mean? You got to be open-minded. And any of these preferences, of course, it can be overcome just because someone is intelligent, just because you have something in common with them, just because you like having a conversation with them. But like, I remember her friend was shorter than her and was more feminine than her. And that was really what I responded to. To be honest with you, sorry, her friend looked more like my current girlfriend, Melissa. Just being real, some of the other features, which now after years I can recognize. Like also, I'm not saying I like an enormous nose on a woman, but I do like a certain kind of like I don't like a woman to have like a tiny nose. You know what I mean? And Melissa, nobody says Melissa has a big nose, but she has like a significant nose. Yeah. I do think that's part of why I respond to Melissa. And anyway, I do like very feminine women. Anyway, sorry, whatever. This is a digression with the shit. My point is like, you are a teenage dude and you have been loaded up like you're a virgin. And look, whatever. The girl I was having sex with, how many men had she had sex with before me? She wasn't a virgin. I forget, she had 2 or 3. But it's like, oh no, you gotta use a condom every time, right? And guess what? If the condom is too small, if the condom doesn't fit, you've got all these problems. Like it's impossible for you to have sex. It's impossible for you to enjoy sex. And the biggest trip of all was this. Like nobody talked me through this. The way marketing worked at the time, like, okay, so I buy a regular size condom, it doesn't work. So I go back and I buy Trojan Magnum. And there was another brand that had extra large in the branding, right? And that's still not big enough. That's still not working. And I could tell it was only slightly bigger, right? Well, of course, this is the way this is 21st century marketing. Like, like they want guys to feel like they're huge when selling them a condom that's like 10% bigger or something. And so I went through this whole thing. It was a huge, and I'm telling you guys about it now, but I had made videos talking about that. Like, dude, this really screws people up for life. It definitely, for like 5 years, it screwed up my life. Like, what do you want to say? Like 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. Yes, easily 5 years. This screwed up my life, right? And, like it's hard to recognize the problem. And then once you recognize the problem, what the fuck are you going to do about it? And like, again, there's all this like guilt trip shit. Like, the type of men who make up an excuse to not use condoms with a woman, that's a terrible man. Like you should feel guilty. There was this whole cultural discourse about how everyone should use a condom every time. Like even if you're married, there was all this bullshit about using a condom all the time being like crucial to fucking, whatever, male morality and not being an abuser or an exploiter of women. There was like absolutely no recognition that there's a significant percentage of the male population who either cannot have sex with a condom at all or cannot enjoy it, right? Now, I'll just mention the biggest size of condom made in America, which is not easy to get. Not every size. It's like the extra large condom by the American standards that I can use. And it's tight on me. But like, if I couldn't get that condom, there would be no condom on earth I could use in my experience, right? So really briefly, so I had this whole fucking trauma with this shit as a teenager. And then I move from Canada to Asia and I go through it all over again. And it's completely fucking surreal. So I'm with a different girlfriend. I'm with my blonde girlfriend, but it's completely fucking surreal. Because for one thing, what they call an extra large condom in Japan, and like someone's like extra large. Remember, there's one Japanese brand. It was like big boy, extra large. Well, guess what? A Japanese extra large condom is smaller than a Canadian normal condom. Like, and I'm with my girlfriend who is an asshole about it. My girlfriend was such a bitch to me about this shit. I'm sorry. I mean, it was a horrible relationship, and the sex was terrible too. It was fucking terrible. She was gorgeous. She was very attracted to me. Like, there were other reasons, but she was gorgeous, and she had a good sense of humor. I really appreciated laughing with her. There were positive things about her. But holy shit, I go through all this trauma again. And I told her at that time, like I had detachment. I was aware. I was like, look, this is something I went through as a teenager when I was first discovering sex. And like, it is still fucking up my life now. Like, I'm not cool with this. I'm not over this. Like, I'm not into, like, whoo, she made my. So look, I'm just saying, when I came out to talk about this issue, I was not trying to promote an OnlyFans. I was not trying to get laid. I was not trying to impress you. I was not trying to humiliate Richard, right? Like, I'm not trying to bring Vegan Gains' channel down or anyone else's channel down. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry. There are women. Hey guys, I see your comments. I'll but like, it's a good suggestion. Somebody says try Saran wrap. It's a good way to get someone pregnant, bro. But like, I'm not trying to bring someone down. Now look, there are all kinds of channels from women. There are women who talk about how being flat-chested changed their lives, how having very small breasts or no breasts will change their life. Good. Talk about it. Share your experience. Be analytical, And by the way, if they want to do OnlyFans too, fine. There's tons of guys who like or prefer small breasted women. According to Richard, he does also. Richard prefers flat-chested small breasted women, according to him. Again, his actual preference is really weird. But I would never denigrate someone saying like, oh, you're feeling sorry for yourself because you have small breasts, blah, blah, blah. Okay, but guess what? There are also women who have YouTube channels talking about how having enormous breasts screwed up their life. And it's real. I had one female friend. I had several female friends who had enormous breasts growing up. One of them became a stripper. I think briefly. Like, I don't know if she was a stripper for 1 year or 2 years. We lost it. And yeah, she was trying to sleep with me, and there was all this weird shit. She quote unquote fell in love with me, and there was all this manipulation. And I didn't want her. Sorry. There are all kinds of women who are attractive or gorgeous, and I don't want them. And women feel the same way about men. You know what I mean? It's not like women want every attractive man or every gorgeous man. I'm sorry, but this is welcome to planet Earth. You know what I mean? Anyway, but yeah, I remember. But anyway, I had one female friend, and she started having big breasts at 13. And I remember her talking about it. Like, all of a sudden, there are all these sports she can't play anymore. Like, she just physically can't play the sport. She talked about she couldn't play volleyball anymore. She couldn't put her hands together to do the volleyball motion. She couldn't, and she could for sports that involved a lot of bumping around. She couldn't run track and field. She couldn't really sprint. Like, she could, but like she was really big. I forget, she was like E cup or double E. I mean, some women are really big, and it's really like, it really limits their ability to play sports, for example. Now, I know, oh, sure, you can be salty. There are women like, oh, yeah, your life is so hard because all these guys want to sleep with you and you can't play volleyball. No, fucking listen. Be willing to listen to people talking about their suffering and their experience in life, right? No, it's fucked up for her. She had the experience at age 13 of fully grown men trying to sleep with her, like adult men trying to sleep with her. And some of those men knew that she was 13, and some of them didn't. Some of them, because of her appearance, because of her body, because she'd already been through puberty, they assumed she was 18 or something like that. They assumed she was older than it was. Okay, that was a huge formative part of her life. That screwed her up. That had these kinds of impact. But like, yes, you have to be willing to listen to that. You have to be willing to talk about that. And there are miseries when you're 13 having enormous breasts, and there are miseries when you're 45 and everything starts sagging and everything, and yes, yeah, it does matter. It does matter to people that they wanted to be a track and field athlete. Maybe she wanted to throw the javelin, whatever it is. She had, whatever. In her case, I'm okay. I guess it doesn't. I knew the specific sports she was involved in that she wanted to play, that she had to kind of stop playing and couldn't get ahead of it. Well, look, maybe that's shallow, but that mattered to her. To some people, playing football matters a lot. To some people, playing baseball matters a lot. And sure, you have this physical development you can't control. Now you can't play sports anymore. Now all these guys are trying to sleep with you and whatever. People are paying for your OnlyFans or paying attention to you on Instagram. All of a sudden, the attention you get on Instagram, it's real. It's real, and it's worth talking about. And like, in the same sense that the problems and struggles, women have, whether they are flat-chested or big-breasted, are worth talking about and worth taking seriously either way. The problems men have, who have an especially small penis and an especially large penis, they're also worth talking about. Like, guys, sorry, we're all a bunch of monkeys. We're all a product of evolution. We are all equally monkeys. Okay, it's absolutely nothing racist, implied by that. So, yeah, this was illustrating the point that in the same way that vegan gains, it's not just hypocrisy. So, guys, I am going to reply to your comments, but he will attack people for things. He will denigrate people for things that he is guilty of himself. And he will set up the criteria to denigrate others, to judge others, to condemn others morally. Criteria that he will never apply to himself, that he won't apply to himself fairly also. Now, I think the ultimate, guys, I'm happy to hear what you have to say about this. I think the ultimate, example of this has got to be his position on mind-altering drugs, right? To my knowledge, Richard Vegan Gains is now on antidepressants. He's now taking psych meds. This is my own merch, by the way. Oh, this is a mirror mode. À-bas-le-ciel. So there you go. Shout out to my merch company. One of these costs the same amount as one of the t-shirts, more or less. And I got to admit, the t-shirts are great, but one of these, this will last a lifetime. This thing it's solid steel. So if you hate it, you're stuck with it for a lifetime. But yeah. The t-shirt will not last a lifetime is my prediction. So if you want to do merch. On the other hand, if you're trying to strike up conversations with people at the gym, we've got a lot of quality comments here. Quote, my teacher a few years ago was 4'10" with a huge ass. God damn. Pictures or it never happened. Remember, people photos are never happened. That went into style. Why did people stop saying that? Maybe it's because people had pictures. Oh, okay. Maybe it got too easy to send pictures. Yeah. I am just saying it's not a fetish. Well, the tallest woman I ever got with was actually the woman with huge breasts who became a stripper. I forget how tall she was. Probably maybe that's part of why I wasn't attracted to her. But one of the things I remember was that my neck hurt. Kissing, the thing you do with your neck is. I hope this is useful information for you. But yeah, it's definitely a different bunch of neck motions to kiss someone who's really tall. I don't know. It's an issue. Could be an issue for any combination of genders. Maybe gay men also think about that. If you're gay, I think you want to be with someone the same height so you can share wardrobe. You know what I mean? So if I were gay, I'd want someone who's the same height as me, same shoe size. Well, now I got twice as many shoes. No. Don't act like I'm the first person to have thought of it. All right, just reading through your comments, guys. So Audrey asks, quote, I'm so lost here. Who has the smaller penis? Do you and Vegan Gains have OnlyFans? Haven't watched vegan channels much in years, and this notification popped up every moment. So I hope you're still here, Audrey. Welcome to the channel. So how much do I want to recap? Vegan Gains does have an OnlyFans. You can now, with a mere Google search, figure out. You can see everything there is to see. And he does. Look, this comes back to probably the most important problem with Vegan Gains. He puts very little effort into it. He doesn't have a highly artistic. I mean, some people do. He's not really acting as a filmmaker on OnlyFans, but you can watch his lazy, zero effort, nude, and pornographic content on OnlyFans. So I do not. but I've been willing to, I on my own channel have been willing to talk about my own penis size and the problems it's created for me in my life, not in order to humiliate or denigrate others. And it may be significant that Richard responded to that challenge as if it were somehow a challenge to him, as if it were denigrating him. And he lashed out at me about it and insulted me about it for years. He insulted me about it, even though he himself was amply guilty of the same so-called sin. He really does, in a kind of noxious way, boast about his penis size. So Loopy Dark says that he or she says, I thought Vegan Gains was married. Correct. And his wife also has an OnlyFans. See if I can get it for you. I assume I can share a link to an OnlyFans here. So, look, a lot of people, I remember making a video when they first got married. I remember, he and I used to talk, blah, blah, blah. We were friends to some extent. But look, I think it's kind of a good segue for me. Earlier, apropos of nothing, I mentioned how my own YouTube channel might have been very different if I'd married another woman or fallen in love with them, if I'd chosen another woman from the ones who were talking to me. And yes, I can imagine that I would have gone into OnlyFans, that would have gone into doing porn, partly out of desperation and hopelessness and lack of better alternatives. And then we got to the fact that, hey, actually, when you think about it, OnlyFans could be politically interesting. It could be a creative challenge as a filmmaker. Then it started to seem way more appealing. Why did Richard choose this particular woman, and why did he stay with her? Obviously, she is objectively unattractive. And I totally get that subjectively you can find a woman beautiful and you can have a meaningful life with her, and it can be wonderfully rewarding to be in a relationship with a woman who is unattractive or even ugly. I'm not against that. I'm not opposed to that. I'm not saying everyone has to be shallow all the time. I am saying that everyone has to be shallow sometimes, some of the time. Okay, once in a while, we all got to be shallow. I think the most important thing here is that Vegan Gains was looking for someone who would never challenge him morally in any way, someone who would never challenge even his work ethic, right? The guy is so lazy. He's so self-indulgent. He sleeps in until 1 PM. He mopes around in his apartment in his bathrobe. He plays video games. He complains about video games. He's just this really dark, self-pitying character. Now, you could imagine he might be with a woman who loved him and who loved his YouTube channel, but who said to him, look, Richard, I remember the level of effort you put into your videos 5 years ago, and you're not doing it now. We're like, look, Richard, I know you're capable of waking up in the morning and maybe treating me better than this, like really being alert and sharp and positive and not being mopey and self-indulgent. Like, look, Richard, I know you're capable of achieving a higher standard creatively, intellectually. He could be with a woman who watches his videos. I mean, we got to come back to this too. This is the big one, is the idea of his channel being quote unquote science education. He could be with a woman who says, look, Richard, you made that video talking about this scientifically, but I know you didn't really do the kind of research that you used to do. I know you didn't really back this up by doing a lot of reading. I know you've never read a book on this topic that you just made a video about. He could be with a woman who asked him hard questions. But above all else, he could be with a woman who is not a video game addict and who questions or challenges his playing video games for long hours. Now, you may or may not know the sad story of Richard trying to transition from being a YouTuber to being a video game live streamer. I have an email he sent to me directly where he said that he was going to become rich like Ninja. Ninja is the name of a famous video game competitor, that he was going to become incredibly wealthy playing video games on Twitch. I think that was shortly before he tried to become rich by showing his penis on OnlyFans, but it didn't happen. And in case you didn't know, he's gone through a series of these kind of manic episodes where he has a mania for achieving success in a certain way. Not only did he fail to ever have a popular YouTube channel or streaming channel on Twitch for video games, but promptly enough, he was banned forever from Twitch. And you know why? And I was joking with Melissa about this before. I mentioned, oh, he's been banned from Twitch. And Melissa asked me, why? It's like, is there any question why he got banned? Does anyone need to know why he got banned from Twitch? Twitch, the standards for censorship are much, much stricter, right? So obviously the same things that got him banned from Twitter. Like, I think he been banned from Facebook? Does he have Facebook again now? But to my knowledge, so correct me if I'm wrong, maybe someone else is, I believe he's been banned from Instagram. He's definitely been banned from Twitter, banned from Twitch, and now for the second time, banned from YouTube. And there's just a question of whether or not YouTube will give him another chance or allow him back, so on and so forth, So yeah, he chose to marry someone who will never give him constructive criticism. So you guys may or may not know this. My girlfriend also makes YouTube videos. And, I do give her constructive criticism, and sometimes it's as simple as saying, babe, that was good, but you should do another take. Like, that was okay. You said everything you needed to say, but like it sounded rushed or it sounded this and that. You're going to be happier if you just take a minute and do another. It can be as simple as that. You're sitting in the studio with her, talking it through. And, she can say no. I mean, she could say, nah, this video doesn't matter enough to me to do it. She could say whatever. It's her decision ultimately. But we do talk about editorial decisions and content-based decisions and, and the research that goes into videos and things too. And we do have substantive discussion that way. Vegan Gains chose to be with someone, no matter how ugly, no matter how lazy, no matter how stupid, right? No matter how immoral, frankly. I also think his wife is an immoral person. Someone who would absolutely never challenge him. Someone who would never make him feel lazy. Someone who would never make him feel immoral, who would never make him feel like he's squandering the opportunity of a lifetime. Someone who would never say to him what I said at the beginning of this video. At the very beginning of this video, if you weren't here, I said, hey guys, there was a time when people got on YouTube because they were trying to save the world. There was a time when these same people would be insulted if you said to them, hey, you're just doing this for money. And now nobody even has this kind of aspiration, ambition, or pretension. Of course, Vegan Gains is just trying to make money. Why did Vegan Gains start live streaming video games? Why did he start live streaming himself lifting weights and all this other crap? He's completely lost touch with the sense of moral purpose and creativity and artistry that motivated him to make videos before. Of course, it's just a cash in. He is doing the minimum amount of effort necessary to make money, and he's barely able to drag himself out of bed. And he chose to get married to a woman who would never make him feel bad about that, who would never question him that way, and would never make him question himself. So yeah, his wife also has a pornographic OnlyFans. It does have nudes, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. I'll just ask you this honestly. So anyone in the audience, serious question. So I'm interested if anyone in the audience can tell me about his current drug habits, because to my knowledge, he is back on whatever. He is now taking antidepressants. He's now taking psychiatric medication, right? I forgot the second question. Oh yeah, here's a legitimate question for you guys. Can you remember the last time he talked about a book he was reading, a book he had read? Now, I'll be honest with you, I can remember Durian Rider talking about one book he'd read. I can remember that from Durian Rider's whole career. Now, I'm not saying that's the only book he read during those years. Maybe he read several others. I can remember him talking about a book he read. Can you remember Richard ever? Like, hey guys, I got books. I used to have stacks of books back. I can bring over my bookshelf, whatever. Can you remember Richard ever saying, even if he doesn't hold up the book, can you remember him ever saying in passing, yeah, I used to see that issue that way, but then I read this book and my perspective on it changed. Like my thinking about that issue changed because of it. I can't remember books ever being cited or invoked or mentioned or discussed in that way on his channel. I can't remember him ever talking about reading ever. And, he could have married someone, and he could also have friends. Sorry, not everything is the person you marry. He could just have friends in his life who challenge him that way. And I guess, you'd have to say, during the brief time that I was his friend, I might have been the only friend in his life who was challenging him that way. And maybe that's why he turned around and attacked me and over penis size. Maybe that's why he made penis size into a big deal. Like we're going to have a competition over who has who has a bigger penis. Well, okay. Richard, if it were anyone other than you, I would say that both of us can fuck your wife and find out who's better in bed. But you couldn't pay me enough to fuck your wife. I'd also like to point out every other critic Richard has ever had. He challenged them to a boxing match. He challenged them to a cage fight. He challenged them to a physical fight in a boxing arena or an MMA gym. And Richard, I am 42 years old. Okay, bro? I'm 42 years old. I'm all natural, bro. Okay? And working out at the gym, it's not even on my top 10 priorities, bro. You and I are the same height, and you never challenged me to a fight. Not even when we were friends. When I offered to meet up with you in a friendly way. Richard, I offered to fight you wearing the mask of one of the guys you hated. This is where he had beef with another YouTube channel. He had a conflict with another YouTube channel. I said, look, Richard, I'll show up. I'll wear a mask pretending to be that guy, and we'll do a fight. We'll do a boxing match. Even that you wouldn't do with me, Richard. And I think it's because I could kick your ass. I could kick your ass on strength of character, Richard, all right, at 42 years old. And dude, I spent 8 months proofreading my book, okay? Like I had a period of 8 months where all I was doing was writing and revising my book, for real, where the gym was zero priority. I'm not in shape right now. I'm not. But we all know what kind of shape you're in. This guy's hopeful. I could do it. If you guys are interested, I could launch into my critique of this guy's fitness advice. It's the worst fitness advice on the internet. I mean, at least you can give him credit for this. He's an idiot about everything. He's an idiot about video games. He's an idiot about politics. He's an idiot about human sexuality, dating, and romance. Well, guess what? He's also an idiot about weightlifting. And that's why he's constantly crippling himself in the gym, why he's giving himself all these injuries, And he says himself, you can quote him on this. He describes himself as mentally disabled. He describes himself as being like an anorexic and having really serious, mental and emotional problems that he puts into bodybuilding, that he himself is dysfunctional in his approach to weight loss and muscle gain. Like he talks about his own mental and psychological problems. Now they warp his sex life. Now they warp his engagement with politics. Okay, Richard. So you spelled it out for us. So why the hell should anyone take your advice about health, diet, fitness, bodybuilding, anything, But I mean, this dude, so just think about it. I don't know, how tall is Spherage? So I realized there's a YouTuber called Spherage. It's actually pronounced Svea, his name, but everyone calls him Spherage. But anyway, Richard, how many times did you sit there threatening to beat up Spherage while you made his career? You took him from being a tiny YouTube channel to a huge YouTube channel. It's because of you that you built this totally sneering, insincere threat that you were going to meet up with and have a fight with Spherage. You did that again and again and again. Sorry, I've such contempt for it. Sorry. It comes back. Sorry. The most basic premise of this video that I'm asking again and again is, whatever happened to getting on YouTube because you were trying to save the world? Whatever happened to being a filmmaker because you're trying to make the world a better place? What happened to that motivation? What happened to you, bro? What happened to this one guy, Vegan Gains? And I can ask any of you in the audience, what happened to you and you and you trying to make the world a better place? What just happened to that positive motivation? There's a really stupid, saying in Buddhism. It's really stupid. I mean, a lot of Buddhism is a pretty stupid religion. It's better than Islam. If you got to choose between Buddhism and Islam, choose Buddhism. But there's a lot wrong with Buddhism as a religion. Trust me. But I remember there was just this saying, and it was practice the Dharma as if your hat is on fire. Like where you're getting out and doing something like, it's, you're working against this time. I remember there were these things, these other things too. So I remember I was reading Pali, the scriptural language. And I remember it was like saying things like work so hard at this, put your whole heart into this, work so hard that you are the envy of the gods. This idea the gods are looking down at you and they are envious of the life you're leading because you're really pushing it. Again, I'm sorry, Buddhism in a lot of ways is a stupid religion. I'm an atheist. I'm a nihilist. I don't believe in anything supernatural, but nevertheless, there's something there. I'm so sick of the mediocrity and self-indulgence and resignationism. Yes, I'm coining it as a phrase of, white English-speaking middle-class Canadians and Americans. I'm so sick of people sitting here and saying like, oh, look at what's happening in Afghanistan. But what can any of us do? Oh, I can give a thumbs up to this video. Oh, I can go on Kickstarter. Oh, I can sit and judge Joe Biden morally. Like, I hate all this shit. And it's all based on this premise of like, oh, well, there were thousands of people who need help. There were millions of people who need help. You can't help any one of them. No, you can practice the Dharma like your hat is on fire. You can exert yourself to the utmost limit where you are the envy of the gods. You can do everything you can possibly do. And if you went to Afghanistan now, if one of you goes to the Afghan border and starts doing humanitarian work, and if you help just 500 people, and there are 50,000 more people you could have helped, you get to have the satisfaction of saying, hey, I did everything I could do. And instead, I'm sorry, to me, Richard is a typical Toronto Canadian. Instead, what he wants to do is sit and judge other people as morally inferior to him, even when they do exactly the same things as he does, whether it's about penis size or the vegan diet or feeding your dog some kind of dog, like no matter how petty, or it's about workout exercise, it's about bodybuilding. All he wants to do is sit and play video games and pass moral judgment on other people. And he is not even motivated to make the world a better place as a fucking creative artist, as a filmmaker, as a YouTuber. And if you're not, why are you on YouTube? Shout out to Natasha in the audience. Natasha says, I think Jasmine is pretty. I have heard heterosexual women say that. Only. I have never had a gay man say Jasmine is attractive. I've never had a straight man say Jasmine. Never heard it once. And no offense, but when straight women say that about Jasmine, what they're really saying is there's nothing wrong with her. Which, like she doesn't have acne. She's not misshapen. I get that. But yeah, it's different. Seeing the world through the eyes of a heterosexual man, it's different. And, among the things you respond to as a heterosexual man, it's not just appearance. You respond to women who would make a good mother. Like that's a pretty deep, biological urge. It's not just about the shape of her face or body. You respond to a woman thinking and feeling like, this is someone who could raise my kids. This is someone I could share my life with. And obviously, she has the opposite vibes under every single one of those headings. I totally forgot. I use no notes. This is all 100% off the dome. What is the title of this video? I actually had something else in mind in particular. This criticism. Right, we haven't even talked about why he got banned. So that's one thing. We have not talked about his comments about this deceased bodybuilder, right? There's a lot of ground to cover. And as I said, yeah, right. The title is The Science Education Channel from Hell. We haven't talked about that. His claims to being a science education. Okay, I'm continuing to go through, catch up with your comments, guys. So I got a question about, so I talked about this in a recent video, no big deal, but I got a question about saying that someone is objectively attractive versus subjectively attractive. So I did talk about this in a recent video. So guys, when we're talking about the social sciences and politics, very often what we mean by objective is intersubjective. So there are subjective judgments, there are intersubjective judgments, and then there are truly objective judgments. So what is a beautiful painting? What is a valuable painting, right? Now, I may own a painting or whatever. I got that flag hanging in the background. I may say, look, this has value to me, like whatever. If I have a painting my daughter painted, okay, to me, this painting is meaningful. To me, it's valuable, whether you think about that being worth money or whatever. You know what I mean? To me, this is beautiful. To me, this is valuable. Subjectively, to me, this is something, important. Yeah, fine. Okay. But it doesn't have objective value. in the sense of intersubjective value. There aren't 10,000 people at an auction who will bid and compete and pay money to buy that painting, either because it's beautiful or important or what have you, all the reasons that make people want to buy a painting. So it is true that is not truly objective. Now, the objective value of something, which comes up once in a while, sometimes you're looking at a work of art and it's actually made out of gold and diamonds. And then you're making a further contrast, say, well, look, there's an objective value just in the material that's made of. There are other senses in which we use objective. So, we can talk about contrasting objective and subjective evaluations. So, there are women who are beautiful to me personally, and it may be because they're intelligent. It may be because they're kind. It may be because we have things in common. There may be a lot of reasons, and that can lead you to look at someone in a certain light and appreciate them, even though they have a big nose, or like one of the most objective measures of all, maybe they have acne, maybe they have really bad skin. Nobody is going to say that's a subjective judgment. Either someone has clear skin or they have a lot of acne or whatever. They may have an illness. They may also, whatever, they may have a disability or deformity, like sciatica or something, have a deformed spine, which is really a serious problem in life, but they're beautiful to you, right? And then we can talk about objective, evaluations. So in a recent live stream, I commented to Melissa that she's not just subjectively beautiful, she's also objectively beautiful. And I gave her the example, which she could relate to right away. I said, Melissa, if you get a normal job again, like in an office that has 500 employees, some kind of, big office. I said, if you're in an office with 500 employees, or if you go back to university, you start studying Chinese at university, so you're around 500 people that way every day, where you're moving in and out of classrooms and chatting with people, and then there will be multiple men competing for your attention and affection, especially if they don't know you're already married or you're already in a serious relationship, that there will be multiple men competing for you. So there may be a woman I find attractive, but I know if she goes back to university or she goes into a workplace and people think she's single, there will not be multiple men competing for her. So yeah, you can talk about objective and subjective, and I think that's cool. So I've said that I'm not quoting all of the comments, but there were different people who responded to that in different ways, and that's fine. So guys, I just want to say this: if my talking about this makes you uncomfortable, go ahead, get uncomfortable. It's good, okay? And then move past that, and let's come to some meaningful analysis and meaningful conclusions in life. Guys, if we're going to talk about bodybuilding, you're going to get uncomfortable. If we're going to talk about penis size, you're going to get uncomfortable. If we're going to talk about veganism, you're going to get uncomfortable. Okay. And you got to move past it. I mean, frankly, if we're going to talk about why vegan gains should be banned, if we're going to talk about censorship, you're going to get uncomfortable. So many people in this society, they live their lives with this notion about freedom of speech, and they get so uncomfortable when you start talking about the necessity of censorship. Okay. So get uncomfortable. It's good. We're going to talk about a lot of stuff today. And guys, and if you're still uncomfortable, send me an email afterwards or join Patreon and send me a message on Patreon. I'm happy to hear from you. I'm willing to get uncomfortable because I want to change the world. And that's why I'm on YouTube. I make like $200 a month out of YouTube. Okay. I'm willing to get uncomfortable with you. And in a sense, I'm willing to get uncomfortable for you. Okay. And here's the biggest taboo of all. So I don't know if some of you are going to write in talking about this. Do you know how uncomfortable people get when you tell them that marijuana causes brain damage? Do you know how uncomfortable people get when you tell them that prescription psych medications cause brain damage, that they are getting permanent brain damage from mind-altering drugs given to them on a prescription basis that are supposedly antidepressants or supposedly antipsychotics? Some of them are anti-convulsive agents and so-called mood stabilizers and so on. Medications that are supposedly going to treat what's wrong with their attitude. It's the fucking truth. What you have is an attitude problem, and you're pretending it's a biologically real disease that can be cured with Adderall, right? You have an attitude problem that you're pretending can be cured with Haldol or Prozac or any of these drugs. And guess what? What you get is brain damage. Do you have any idea how fucking uncomfortable people get when you start talking about brain damage? Go ahead, get uncomfortable. And fuck you, Richard. You know that the drugs you're on don't work. You know that the drugs you're on cause brain damage. And you're on social media promoting them because you'd rather live in a fucking dream. You've become everything you despise. Period. Shout out to Unnatural Vegan. You heard of this YouTube channel? Unnatural Vegan. Unnatural Vegan, you know that you harmed your own baby by taking mind-altering drugs during pregnancy and breastfeeding. You know, and I know that you know. And you came out in the most sheepish way imaginable, admitted that you continued taking, psych meds during your pregnancy and breastfeeding because you felt it would be best for you. Both of these people, Vegan Gains and Unnatural Vegan, they know how to do a Google search for peer-reviewed scientific evidence, okay? They have a long history of making YouTube videos where they go and get, even if it's cherry-picked, even if it's dishonest, even if it's incompetent, where they go out and get the evidence and talk about brain damage, liver damage, the health benefits and defects of a fucking... Okay, so we know they can do it, all right? And you choose not to because you'd rather live a fucking dream while you're awake. Well, I'm not one of the goddamn dreamers, okay? I'm one of the nihilists. I want to live my life and die awake. I'd rather be shot in the chest than be shot in the back. All right, I know what I'm out here fucking struggling for. Okay, you want to live a life based on faith. You want to live a life based on self-selected obscurity. You want to live a life based on optimistic ignorance. Or do you want to admit to yourself that the things you enjoy, the things that make you feel good, may be bad for you? They may be killing you, and they may be bad for society, and they may be bad for animals, and they may be bad for the environment. They may be bad for ecology. They may be bad for the world or politics in another sense. And the fact that you enjoy them justifies nothing. Do you want to be on the side of people making excuses, or the people who come on YouTube to argue passionately, stop making excuses? Right? That's who you used to be, Richard. You used to be part of the anti-excuse camp. That's who you used to, I'll give her credit. Unnatural Vegan, there was a time, however brief, there was a time when you were out here on YouTube telling people to give up their excuses. And now you've become the opposite. You've become the very thing you hate. You've become everything you despise. Catching up the comments, guys? Someone says, RIP John Meadows. Okay, so look. So I've kind of been dancing around this. All right. John Meadows endorsed an unhealthy diet. All right. John Meadows' unhealthy diet killed him. Now, I do not know to what extent John Meadows admitted the use of performance-enhancing drugs. Like, I just don't know how honest he was about that. Like, I don't know if he was all the way honest or a little bit honest, because these days, most of the bodybuilders, they'll kind of drop hints and fess up. Okay. I'm not, just being real with you, I have no interest in this guy's YouTube content. So I'm not going to spend 2 or 3 hours watching his videos to get a sense of how honest he was about steroid. I'm sorry, I'm not willing to do that for John Meadows. Okay. So RIP John Meadows. Right. Okay. Imagine you have a science education YouTube channel. You want to come out and talk about how John Meadows' unhealthy diet advice contributed to his own early death. Imagine you have a science education YouTube channel and you want to talk about how some of the choices he made in life, maybe concerning drugs, alcohol, steroid use, maybe how that contributed to the end of his life. You could even just imagine back to what Vegan Gains' own videos were like 5 years ago. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't take that much imagination to think of someone doing the research and presenting it in a respectable way. That's what I did talking about brain damage on my channel. I'm not out here ridiculing people for having brain damage. I'm talking with total sympathy. I say, look, you people are sad. You go into your doctor, you say, I'm broken, fix me. Your doctor says, here's the thing for you. It's called Prozac. It's called Haldol. It's called Adderall. Your doctor gives you a drug habit. You went in because you're upset, you're morose, and your doctor says, we have just the thing to cure what's wrong with you. The problem isn't you. The problem isn't that you have a bad attitude. The problem isn't that this is something you can take responsibility for. Oh no, here's the cure. That's what Richard did. Right? Richard got on these same fucking drugs that he knows have been debunked. He knows the scientific literature. He knows they don't work. And he knows the negative side effects are real. I got sympathy for that. I'm not going to ridicule you for having brain damage. And I've made videos in the past talking about one prescription drug I took. It was for malaria. Malaria is a real disease. It wasn't for some fucking made up disease like depression. It wasn't for some horseshit, fad ideology, pseudoscience, right? Malaria really exists. I don't know. I have no idea how fucked up I am for the rest of my life from taking a drug used to prevent you from contracting malaria that causes permanent brain damage. I have no idea, right? I have no idea how different. I have to live with that uncertainty forever. So I have sympathy for you, right? I used to eat meat. I used to eat yogurt. I mean, I remember. I'm an amnesiac. Everybody in my family, still today, some of my friends eat meat. Like, I can't say to you, like, I refuse to talk to people who eat meat. And there are people, I don't even ask. There are people who are fans of my YouTube videos for other reasons. And I know they hear about it enough on my channel, you know, and like they respect me because of politics. They respect me for other reasons. And I don't even ask. And I know, well, if they listen to my YouTube channel, they know what comes up from time to time. They know they're being presented with it. And, you know, and there are people who tell me they became vegan because of my YouTube channel. Blah, 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 blah. But like, dude, as tough and disconcerting and disrespectful and disruptive as that message is, like, look, you think you found the cure to depression. And guess what? You've bought into self-deception. And you're getting permanent brain damage as a result. That's fucking disturbing. Okay, well, guess what? Your grandparents told you that beef is healthy, that white chicken breast is what bodybuilders eat. Your grandparents told you that eating certain types of fish, like Arctic char, is what all the... You grew up with all this programming and ideology. Most of the bodybuilders are into raw chicken eggs. You know, they use fucking egg whites and put them in a blender. Disgusting. You know, you know, if you don't know this, in the German language, the word for protein is egg white. Eiweiß is protein in the German language. It's built into the language. The idea that the best source of protein is chicken eggs. People live with this and they share the advice with others and they tell other people. I talked to an ex-vegan who's like, oh, you know, like butter tastes good and it tastes good for a reason because you were evolved to love the taste of butter, so it must be good for you. And you have to bring in the jarring, disturbing advice that no, there's all kinds of shit that feels good and tastes good and it's wrong. You know, cocaine tastes good and it will kill you. Dogs will go out in the front yard and will lick up the chemicals that have leaked out of the bottom of your car because they like the smell and the taste of antifreeze, and then they will die. Okay? Wild animals will eat things that poison them because they smell good and they look good and they enjoy eating them, and then they keel over and die. And we as animals are no better. When I lived in England, there were little children who went out in the yard and ate trumpet flowers. So there's a type of flower. There's more than one type of trumpet flower. The trumpet flowers that are commonly grown in English gardens in England are incredibly poisonous, incredibly toxic, but they look beautiful and they smell nice. And little children, they make up some games. Like, I don't know why. Like, it's not like they were starving or something, but they went and they ate these plants. And to my recollection, some of them were hospitalized and got their stomach pumped, and I think some actually died. Okay, you know, it can smell good, it can look good, it can make you feel good. All right, and guys, if you think that the struggle we're in now against antidepressants is tough, guess what's coming next? SARMs. SARMs are next, baby. Okay, if you don't know what SARMs are, it's not going to be long. Okay, because guess what? Guess what the good news is about Prozac? It doesn't work. All right. So people buy into this whole fucking ideology. Oh, this is going to solve my problems. Oh, I was born with a chemical imbalance in my brain. Ooh. Well, yeah, but you take the actual psychological effects of fucking Prozac aren't worth having. The actual psychological effects of Haldol aren't worth having. Oh, no, Adderall, that's different. Oh, now you feel good. Now you feel like you're so, oh, that was what was wrong with me, especially the first few weeks. Later, you become a crippling addict. For some people, interestingly, Xanax is not consistent. Some people love the feeling of Xanax. Some people hate it. Not everyone responds in the same way. Yeah, how about cocaine, guys? How different is that? Oh, so your first, but dudes, if you start shooting up testosterone booster, when you start using testosterone booster, when you start using things that modify your your hormone system. Okay, talk about a pure natural high. It's completely unnatural. But the high is now, whoa, now your testosterone is boosted. And almost every single one of the performance enhancing drugs, there are some exceptions. Some of the performance enhancing drugs are instead based on your red blood cell count. But most of the performance enhancing drugs people use, either their primary effect is boosting testosterone, or it's a secondary or tertiary effect. Like their primary effect may be something else, but then that leads to your body overproducing testosterone. And of course, there's direct testosterone building. So steroids, SARMs, so-called hormone replacement therapy, testosterone boosters of every kind. Okay, guess what, guys? When you get on testosterone, all of a sudden, you ain't depressed. You ain't depressed at all. You're highly motivated. You feel amazing. And you don't even think you're on a drug high. I feel like the canary in the coal mine for this is the female to male transgender community. There are women, and it's mostly ex-transgender people who talk about this, but there are transgender people. There are people who are still transgender who are willing to talk about this. There are women who think they have all these psychological problems and they're so unhappy, so they go to a psychiatrist and they decide to transition between genders. And then they really feel like they made the right decision, because as soon as they start taking testosterone booster, all their problems in life seem to, I used to be shy and now I'm self-confident. I used to be moping and depressed and now I'm waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning and going to the gym. There are all these effects on your sex life and your psychology, and it's a drug high, right? It's a drug trip. So if you think this is a tough fight now with the excuses being made for antidepressants, it's only going to get tougher, because the drugs that have already been around for 40 years in terms of steroids, performance enhancing drugs, they've become cheaper and more readily available. And there are new drugs. There are the SARMs. There's the next generation coming out, right? And they're even if they have no advantage, the fact that they haven't been debunked as effective, the fact that there isn't scientific research pointing out the negative side effects and disadvantages and what they are, the fact that, just because it's new, because it's a new development, right? Woo! Now you're really up against a self-justifying mentality, So yeah, I mean, I said this about veganism, the excuses for eating meat are harder to quit than the meat. We could say this about antidepressants. It's the excuses for antidepressants that are hard to quit. That's harder to quit than the antidepressants itself, right? But guess what, homie? Once you're a testosterone addict, you're a testosterone addict for life. If you are a man, your testicles shut down. Your body's natural hormone balance shuts down forever. You never recover. You've been made into a cripple. You've been made into a lifelong drug addict. And now the question you have to ask yourself every day is just how much you're going to abuse that drug. So once it becomes that you get your testosterone out of a bottle. And by the way, one of the common ways to do it is with a gel. You don't have to inject it. You can do it through the skin, right? How much gel are you going to put on? So now you wake up in the morning, you put on the gel and think, I feel good. It's it's not that different from coffee, right? Have I had enough coffee to go to work today? What if you put on twice as much testosterone gel, or inject twice as much, or take twice as much? Now you feel it. So in that case, it's not just the excuses that are hard to quit. It's the drug itself that's hard to quit. And guess what? When you quit taking testosterone booster, whatever the format, whatever the drug, because again, there are many different performance enhancing drugs that boost testosterone. Then you have chemically induced depression. Then you're in a situation where you feel listless, you feel no ambition, you have no sex drive. Many men report they can't get an erection at all. Now you feel depressed in a way that never existed in nature in the whole fucking evolutionary history of our species, Okay, I'm reading your comments, guys. Sorry for the radio silence. I'm just trying to catch up with you. In response to my question, can you ever remember Richard mentioning a book he's read? So we got the name of one of the manga he read. So he read some Japanese comic books. Mostly, I've heard him talk about hardcore porn from Japan that he reads or watches. But yes, so there was one manga he quoted, one Japanese comic book. So There you go. This gives you a sense of just how much or how little intellectual development he's been through, you know? So someone asks if Vegan Gains is a closeted homosexual. Um, I wouldn't imagine that Richard is a repressed homosexual. I don't see that. But I think he is utterly lacking the kind of warmth and positivity and frankly humility and self-analysis and self-doubt that's needed to have a positive sex life. you know you got to do that. For years, and in some ways you got to do it forever. So look, it may sound weird coming from me. Most people on the internet talk about that you need to have self-confidence to have a good sex life. Well, you can have too much self-confidence. You can be in a situation where what you need is more self-doubt. There's a lot of in sex, I'm okay, are you okay? Really having sensitivity to the other person's feelings and really thinking about their feelings before they complain about them. You know what I mean? It's not like you take it to a point where they're complaining. There's a huge important role for self-criticism and self-doubt in sexuality that's part of being a loving partner. Even look, I'm just gonna be real. Even if you're just doing hardcore porn, even if you're meeting up with somebody, you talk for 15, 20 minutes, and then you film a porn scene together, and like there really is no relationship. Still, really being sensitive and self-critical and caring about someone's feelings. There's a lot that goes into that, and so that's what he's lacking. He lacks being magnanimous entirely, and I think that he has this kind of crippling, debilitating intellectual problem, which is why his sexuality is so weird and so strange. But no, I mean, there's never been any sign that he desires to be with men. And not even his interest. He's not really interested in other men's bodies that way, and so on. You know. Sorry, a lot of comments for me to catch up with here. I'm trying to. Okay, so the issue of censorship comes up here again. Again, I'm sorry, I don't know how much time has passed since you guys made these comments. Um, you know, Imagine if Instagram did not allow pictures of swimsuits at all. What if they had a rule that you couldn't show any more flesh than you could in a t-shirt? What if they even had a rule that all you could show is your hands and face? No, this is going to sound ridiculous. Let's take it all the way. You can't even wear tight clothing. All right. Obviously, the whole character of Instagram and people's messages with each other on Instagram would be different, right? Now, on the other hand, what if Instagram allowed nudity? What if Instagram allowed hardcore pornography? You know how that would change it. So censorship matters, and it matters positively, just in separating things into separate categories. If you want, the fact that you don't want Instagram to become a hardcore porn platform doesn't mean you're morally opposed to pornography existing on planet Earth. There's just a different website you can go to for hardcore pornography. The fact that you want them to be separate magazines, that you don't want the politics magazine and the hardcore porn magazine to be one and the same, it doesn't mean you're against it existing. Absolutely. So I think there is a lot of demonization of censorship, but censorship is a kind of self-definition. No, I'll say that again. What defines you? If you produced your own magazine, I know it's old-fashioned. Obviously, this applies to YouTube channel or anything else. But let's just say you were writing articles and producing your own magazine, and it starts off with you every issue you're writing multiple articles. It's a monthly magazine, and you try to involve some of your friends and relatives and contributing articles to this magazine. And then one of your friends writes an article that you feel isn't good enough. There's something offensive about it. It's too stupid. It's too mean-spirited. Let's say mean-spirited is the problem. They write an article. And they say to you, well, look, come on, you got to fill up this whole magazine. You can't write those stuff. Why don't you publish my article in your magazine? You could say back, no, this magazine is defined by what I refuse to publish. Like the fact that I am excluding that article, the fact that I'm saying, no, that's too mean-spirited or that's too stupid or that's too offensive, that's what defines the magazine. It's easy to say the magazine is defined by what you do publish, by what you do say, by what you do write. But there's also this really important point where you are defining your publication. You are defining yourself, through editorial control, through what you reject. So, censorship is a form of self-definition. Now, I'll say this too, at the risk of boring my girlfriend, because it's something we've talked about before. Language is not a method of writing. Language is not a method of communication. And language is not even a method of recording events from the past. At its most fundamental, language is a method of thinking. We think in language when we're alone. We think in language in our dreams, right? And we have to think in language before we can write something or publish something. When you censor yourself, when you really try to speak accurately, you know what I mean? You are also trying to think accurately. You're forcing yourself to think accurately. So, it's very easy to say insulting things about people. It's very easy to say defamatory things about people where you're just being approximate and imprecise, and you're not forcing yourself to really think precisely and really speak accurately. But one of the things I've done on live streams, and I've drawn attention to it. Sometimes I refer to a woman as a girl, and I stop. I say, "No, young woman." So I was talking to this girl, young woman. She was about 21, and then I keep going with the anecdote. I'm forcing myself to speak accurately because I want to think accurately. And that is self-censorship. And you should censor yourself. That is one of the most powerful acts of defining who you are. And with time, over years, it changes who you are. You become a better person and you think more precisely. So, in this video, I've said negative things about Richard, but all of them are true. I see so many commentary videos on YouTube that make criminal allegations about people and make innuendo and say things about people's sex lives that are not remotely true. And a lot of the time, it doesn't seem to me like the person is intentionally lying, that they're intentionally creating a myth. They're just thinking in a very sloppy way where they don't want to question themselves, contradict themselves, self-censor, and force themselves to really think and speak accurately. Just catching up with your comments. Okay, so we have one person in the audience, I don't know if she's still here, who is defending Prozac, who claims this supposed to be. Babe, could you grab the book for me? So I'm gonna give you a book to read, Audrey. You claim this helps you. Okay, I will give you the link at Amazon. I think I can send a link. You know what? I'll just type out what they Google and you'll get it. Okay, Audrey, so this is for you. You can Google this and you can get the book. So, Audrey, you've heard me say that these drugs you're making excuses for cause brain damage. I notice you don't say that I'm wrong. I notice you don't say that I'm incorrect. I notice you don't say that I'm ignorant. I notice you don't claim that I don't know what I'm talking about. You don't say that I haven't done the reading. I think it's because you know that I do know what I'm talking about. All right. What you say is that you feel that this drug works for you. Okay, Audrey, before you come out in public and you claim this drug works, and for some reason you're not making the claim it doesn't cause brain damage. Isn't that interesting? Isn't that strange? Why wouldn't you say, oh no, that's not true? No. So on some level, you are aware that this causes brain damage. You just think that you have an excuse for it. You think you have an excuse good enough to justify the negative side effects, to justify the brain damage. Okay, Audrey, how about you read this one book? Now, if you don't have time, you could watch videos that are on my YouTube channel that present a whole ton of the scientific facts. And there are videos on my channel, by the way, where it's not me speaking. I've edited it together. I did an intro and outro, but where it's a whole series of clips from medical experts who spent years of their lives doing research and publishing peer-reviewed papers, right? It's not my opinion. Okay, Audrey, you can hear that, right? But don't you think that what you're doing is irresponsible and even evil? Let's talk about the world's most popular drug. Alcohol. Alcohol causes brain damage. Audrey, are you aware that marijuana causes brain damage? What if someone said the same thing to you that you've just said to me? Quote, it's just how my brain is. Quote, it works well for me. Quote, it helps me with anxiety. Okay. If you think alcohol helps you with your anxiety, you're an addict. Alcohol does help people with their anxiety if they're alcoholics. Oh, yeah, marijuana. Oh, yeah, helps with anxiety. You're talking about taking a sedative. When you use marijuana, you're sedated. When you use it regularly, you're addicted to sedatives. You think that helps you with your anxiety, and you think that doesn't cause brain damage? Really? Audrey, you should be ashamed of yourself. Now I'm asking you to hold yourself to a higher standard. The same standard we're here expecting Vegan Gains to hold himself to, right? Like, dude, do the research. Dude, take responsibility for the message you're putting out in the world, right? And by the way, just again, it doesn't have to be a positive message. I'm totally fine with people coming up on the internet and saying, their grandpa died and they're upset about it, or how much they are disappointed with the Canadian government. You can share your misery and your failure and your disappointment and your agony. I am the last person to say it needs to be a positive message. I think you have got to take responsibility for the consequences of the message you share, right? And I think about that even when I'm talking about like my university. When I say, hey, this is a terrible university, here's my terrible experience. But I feel like I have to be scrupulously honest and accurate, so I'm not going to damage someone else's life. So I'm not going to screw up someone else's life, whether that's the professors or other students, right? I'm not going to overstep, certain lines, even in talking about something that where I really know, So, Audrey, what you have just said about these drugs and how they make you feel. Have you ever talked to a cocaine addict about how cocaine makes them feel? Do you believe cocaine causes brain damage? Or would you accept a completely subjective argument from a cocaine addict that, it certainly helps with your anxiety? Yeah, right. It's your brain chemistry, right? That's right. Yeah. Okay, so good question, sir, guys. A lot of good comments, and I'm trying to read through them. Glad to see people are still here and putting up with these, frankly hard to deal with. I understand this stuff is disturbing. I understand it's going to make you uncomfortable. So James McPine says, quote, how can people deal with depression, anxiety, body dysmorphia, or an eating disorder without drugs? Give these people an effective alternative, Eisel. Okay, so James, I don't know how old you are. I don't know what kind of experience you have in life. All right. I have never once on my channel said that everyone should read Aristotle. I have never once on my channel said that everyone should read Thucydides. Now, in case you don't know who I'm talking about here, some people don't know these names. I'm going to type them out for you. Aristotle and Thucydides. These are really important books from ancient Greece. All right. I don't think there is one solution to everyone's problems, even to the extent of recommending that everyone in this audience should read Aristotle and Thucydides. One-on-one, I talk to individual people. I get to know them. I understand their problems. I understand their aspirations, their ambitions, their research interests. And I say, yeah, you need to read Aristotle. If this is what you're doing and this, okay, well, here's what, and it's very specific. I'm not saying read everything by Aristotle. Well, there's this book by Aristotle that deals with that. Okay. I think the error you're making here, James, that you may not realize is that you are implicitly medicalizing these conditions as if they were equivalent to diabetes, right? Like, oh, well, how do you deal with diabetes? And then we scientifically understand what diabetes is. There's type 1, type 2, type 3. And then we can give advice. If you are diabetic, you should eat more of this, eat less of that, that we can give recommendation for diabetes that will be equally true of one diabetic person and another, okay? If you are quote unquote depressed, you do not have a biologically real condition that makes you in any way comparable to someone else who is diagnosed with depression. Never has. Never has me. Guess what, guys? Why don't you just talk to the other people in the waiting room when you're going to get your so-called meds? Oh, why are you here? Well, my father died and I started being depressed. And, I was coping with it by really overeating and I had no sex drive. So that's diagnosed as depression. There's another person in the same waiting room getting the same medication, supposedly to cure the same chemical imbalance in their brain. Oh, well, why are you here? Oh, well, I broke up with my girlfriend and I've been depressed. And since I broke up with her, I haven't met someone new yet. And my sex drive is really high and I've been losing weight. I've been nervous and not eating. And the symptoms are totally different. And one person's depression involves sleeping too much. They sleep more hours than they used to. And another person is sleeping less. They find they can't sleep. They're nervous and jumpy. One person gains weight, one person loses weight, one person has an increased sex drive, one person feels no sex drive at all. Oh, gee, and this is all one biologically real condition. And all of these symptoms and all these scenarios, whether it's that you miss your deceased father or you broke up with your girlfriend, or maybe you're depressed because you're cheating on your girlfriend. You have a girlfriend and you're dealing with the stress of having a second girlfriend. People get depressed for all kinds of reasons. You're depressed because of the pressure of studying for exam. Oh, right. And here is one and the same pill that will cure this quote unquote chemical imbalance in the brain that scientifically never existed. So, James, I know your question is well intentioned, but what I'm directing you to do is examine the assumptions that are the base of it, because I don't even believe in recommending that everyone read the same book, and reading a book will not give you brain damage. Now, the other examples you give. So do you have the delusion that depression is one thing in the same sense that, like type 2 diabetes is one thing that unites together people? Like I've already talked about how ridiculous that is, right? You think anxiety is one thing, one biological? There's an amazing array of things that are described as anxiety. Are you kidding me? You think body dysmorphia is one thing? Have you known 3 different people with body dysmorphia? Totally different, psychological problems reflecting different particular background. And sometimes people will tell you, oh yeah, they have this specific form of body dysmorphia because they grew up in this condition with this mother. It can be very specific, like their father was a gym coach who wanted them to be an Olympic athlete and in gymnastics or something. Like there are really specific reasons why people have body dysmorphia. People have body dysmorphia because their older sister was more beautiful than them and they were trying to look like their older sister. And it's not the same. It's not one thing. It's a category applied to totally miscellaneous experiences of human misery, you know, and you want one alternative in the same sickening, ridiculous way that one pill is supposed to cure all these people. She's always saying, there was a time when I'd separated from my wife. Now we're legally divorced. So first you're separated, then you're legally divorced. I was very sad because I couldn't see my daughter. Still sad about it. Split up. I couldn't see my daughter anymore. And all these people were lying to me and manipulating me and treating me like crap. It's not worth getting. But there were a lot of people being cruel to me when they should have been kind. Exactly the people I relied on, to be honest with me, including my lawyer of that time. People were lying to me and manipulating me and doing things behind my back. It was a terrible, terrible situation. Do you guys have any doubt that at that time, if I had gone and told the doctor about this, just normal MD, do you have any doubt that I could have been prescribed mind-altering medications like this, whether antidepressants or what? Do you have any doubt that some doctor would go, gee, well, that sounds like a real problem. Here's the cure for that. Sure. No, but either way. So Melissa says, if you're having trouble sleeping because you're thinking about how much you miss your daughter. Okay, but also the opposite. What if you're sleeping too long? You go in, you say, I'm sleeping 11 hours a day because I'm so depressed. Either one. It's taken as a symptom for the same condition, for the same cure. Oh, here you go. They will give me the same drug that they gave Richard, that they gave Vegan Gains. Like, what's Vegan Gains' problem? He has fucking violent fantasies about killing. He's this violent, malevolent, depressed person. It's a totally different form of so-called depression. Well, we call them both depression. Gee, you sit around in your apartment playing violent video games. You have these violent outbursts, and you have all this stuff with guns and knives and all. Okay, you got all this. Okay, we're going to call that depression, and we're going to give you the same treatment. There are even more diverse things that can be classified as anxiety or eating disorder or what have you. There are totally different human experiences, totally different problems of attitude, totally different problems of philosophy, totally different problems in terms of cognition, in terms of really like mental disability. Like part of Richard's problem is that he's stupid. We all know this, right? Whether or not he ever gets diagnosed as having a learning disability or mental disability, he has a history of very serious concussion. He has a history of brain damage and problems caused by injury to his brain. History of brain injury. Okay, so like, who in their right mind would look at my situation where I've split up with my wife? Pardon me, I've split up with my wife, and I miss seeing my daughter, and compare that to Richard, who's fanatically hates babies, fanatically hates having children, anyone who has children, and who has violent fantasies about, and oh no, it's the same chemical imbalance with the same cure. Whether you gain weight or lose weight, whether whether you sleep too much or sleep too little. So Ron Sims says that he was put on psych meds at one point for autism. So Ron has talked about his dubious autism diagnosis, where he still doesn't really know if in some sense he's autistic or not. But anyway, he's living a normal life. So if he is autistic, he's just slightly autistic. But he said that the psych meds he was put on left him, quote, a howling mess and a doll. Thanks for writing in, Ron. I appreciate your honesty on these things. And the other question is just to what extent are the meds, impairing your sleep? Because any psychological condition you have is made worse by sleep deprivation. And a lot of these meds reduce the quality of your sleep or reduce the quantity of your sleep. Now you have impaired sleep, and then you start having all kinds of other psychological problems that you may or may not attribute to lack of sleep, because you may not be able to perceive it. Like you're lying in bed for the right number of hours, but you don't realize, you don't realize the extent to which that's impacting your life directly and indirectly. Okay, so Audrey has doubled down and is still defending this. Sorry, I do want to move on to other topics, and we got to wrap up talking about the what's in the title of this video. Okay, so Audrey, you say, quote, "It took me 2 years to get my brain back to 100% after trying that drug," close quote. So you talk about being switched between more than one psych med. Oh, really, Audrey? And you say you have some academic background in this area of the sciences. Really? You think these drugs don't do permanent brain damage? You think if you were willing to read one book, you think your view that the brain damage is not permanent would be sustainable? Really? You don't think that mistake had permanent consequences for you for the rest of your life? You think there's science to back that up, that it's not permanent brain damage? They're not permanent changes in the structure of the brain? Really? You know you're bullshitting. You know you're living a lie. Look, guys, you know what I can compare this to? So I'm Jewish ethnically. I'm not a member of the Jewish religion. You think Jewish people don't live with these kinds of justifications about circumcision? Like you lose about 40% of the nerve endings in your penis? Oh, well, I have this really good excuse for why. Just recognize that you're making excuses. You know what I mean? You recognize, you know that this causes permanent brain damage. All right. And whatever you want to say about, you recognize that this causes permanent brain damage. Now, what you have to recognize is that you're making excuses for it. And you have to stop making excuses. So I am reading all your comments, guys. That's why you have a little bit of silence here. So we get another vote from Quite Jaded, from someone who says that Jasmine is not ugly. She has some features that some people might find attractive. So I had a friend who vegan gains led into their more private circle of people who watch these private live streams they do from their apartment. So I forget if he did that over Discord or what, but I forget what the format was, but he used to have more footage, again, for people he trusted, of them walking around their apartment and so on. I'm sorry, but I really can't separate the way someone looks from their intellectual and emotional character. You know, now, admittedly, when you see a photograph beautifully taken by a professional photographer, that's exactly what it does. Like, a great photographer will make someone look intelligent who's a complete idiot. They'll get their face and their eyes, just the right moment where their eyes are focused in a certain way. Wow. So whether it's a Hollywood actress or anything else, there are very stupid people who are made to look engaging and intelligent, what have you. But anyone, if you know them even for 15 minutes or 30 minutes, the ultimate reason why Jasmine is repulsive is because she's a repulsive character. It's because of who she is intellectually and ethically and emotionally. So is it impossible to take a picture of Jasmine that would be flattering, that would get her? No, I'm not gonna dispute that. That you can take a flattering picture of her, but yeah, I mean, she is the worst kind of self-indulgent, frankly, malevolent and self-righteous video game addict. And she's a terrible person. And I can't imagine anyone having a 15-minute conversation with her and finding her charming or lovely or attractive, or still finding her attractive. So yeah, I'm just saying that the judgment that uh, someone is repulsive involves all of these things to some extent. Boom Tendo says, looking great. Looks like you lost some weight. I have not lost 1 pound. just being real with you. I weighed myself, I think, yesterday. So no, I have not lost 1 pound. We'll see. We'll see if I lose any weight. But anyway, I am now trying to work out more because switched up the pace of working on the book for about 8 months. All my time and energy was going to the book. Okay, guys. So I've read all your comments. Not everything is worth replying to. No offense. I'm going to wrap up coming back to the title of this YouTube video. If you guys have more to say that is on topic, no offense, but we're going to come back and talk a little bit more narrowly about Vegan Gains, the science education channel from hell. You may disagree with me. I feel that we would all agree that what Vegan Gains says he is supposed to do, that what Vegan Gains says his aspiration to do on YouTube is really a tremendously positive thing that we need more of in the world, right? Like, it would be wonderful if someone were really doing what he pretends to do, what he says he's trying to do. But the, tragedy is that what he claims to be a science education channel, what he claims to be educational and informative and reaching out to people and engaging in debate and so on, it's not that at all. I mean, it becomes nothing but a parade for his own, tremendously fragile ego. Now, I challenge you guys to it. You can disagree with me. You can give your own opinion. When I look at Vegan Gains, I don't see a self-confident person. I see someone who is tremendously fragile. I see someone who responds to me making a video talking about penis size by harassing me about my own penis size and boasting about his penis size. And then eventually he goes public with it and starts posting pictures of his penis. I see Vegan Gains being, tremendously fragile, even in talking about diet and exercise, weight loss, about being thin, and about weight gain, meaning gaining muscle, And I don't know if you guys have seen, there are moments other YouTube channels have cobbled together of him freaking out and getting incredibly upset because someone says he's fat, someone says he's overweight, someone says he needs to lose weight or be leaner. And obviously he himself has talked about his feelings of self-loathing about not being muscular enough, not being enormous enough that he wants to be, perceived this way. So, Richard is a grown man now. What kind of grown man bases his self-confidence on the size of his penis? What kind of grown man bases his self-confidence on the size of his muscles? Or frankly, like, within reason, how thin you are? Like, I understand if you're 300 pounds overweight or something, for 400 pounds, okay, I understand this is a problem. But, within reasonable limits, in a very simple sense, what does any of it matter? Well, the point is, what does it matter compared to something else, right? My ego isn't based on any one thing in particular. You know what I mean? My sense of feeling good about myself, to say briefly in 2 points, is based on leading a meaningful life all the time, every day. Even if I'm busy with a newborn infant in my arms. When my daughter was a newborn infant, I would rock her to sleep. By the way, I'm doing it like this. You use your whole body. I got a big workout. Anyway, I would rock her to sleep in my arms. And then when she was asleep, I literally picked up and started reading Thucydides. I was reading Politics of Ancient Greece and Rome at that time. It's a very special time in life. I'm taking care of this infant. I'm mopping the floor. I'm cooking. I'm struggling to lead a meaningful life even then. While taking care of my daughter as a newborn infant, sometimes I'd lay her down to sleep and I'd put in one headphone. You'd have to have one ear in case she wakes up in the crib. So I'd lay her down in the crib and then I'd go to do the dishes. When the baby's asleep, that's your chance to do dishes. And I would do dishes. The crib would be right there, by the way. I could see it. And I'd do dishes and I listened to Herodotus. You guys know Herodotus? It's another ancient Greek. Herodotus. Yeah. and I was listening to a meaningful book on tape. And one of my memories is I can remember walking past her crib because every so often in Herodotus, it would mention some obscure place, like somewhere in Turkey or something. That's probably this. I'm like, where is that on a map? And I'd be watching this and I'd dry off my hands and I'd really, as quietly as possible, while trying to stop my hands, I would tiptoe past my daughter's crib and then go to the computer and Google, like, where is this place in ancient Turkey or ancient Egypt or something? I go back to watch it. Okay, what is my ego based on? You know what? It's based on the struggle to lead a meaningful life, which is a struggle that never ends. It's a struggle that's with you every day, whether you're busy working at McDonald's, you're busy working at Starbucks, you're in the army, or you're taking care of a newborn infant, where you're learning, you're progressing, you're leading a meaningful life, all the time. And then beyond that, right? And this, guys, this does not come to you as a teenager. If you're watching this as a teenager, I guarantee you don't know what I mean by this yet. Okay. My ego, my sense of self-confidence is based on doing the best I can. All right. Even if you fail again and again and again. I'm just going to use this example quickly because I just mentioned it. Guys, I'm not the greatest expert on Aristotle. I'm not the greatest expert on Thucydides or Herodotus. I am not the greatest expert on anything to do with ancient Rome or ancient Greece. I meet people with PhDs in that field from time to time, and they seem to know less than I do. There are a lot of people with PhDs who don't really know that much or can't have that interesting conversation. Doesn't matter. Okay. But the point is, whether I meet someone with a PhD or I meet someone with some totally different background, whatever it is, I don't go into the conversation acting like I have the biggest penis in the world, right? I don't go into the conversation as if I have the biggest muscles in the world or as if I'm better than you. I go into the conversation saying and feeling and acting like, hey, I'm doing the best I can. Even if I don't know everything about ancient Greece. I mean, sorry, here's one book I haven't read. It's a very important book, Xenophon. I've read several different books by Xenophon. Some are better than others, by the way. I have read many books, but this particular book by Xenophon, I have never read yet. And somebody could easily say, oh, well, you must just be a beginner. No, I've been reading about the politics of ancient Greece and Rome for decades, but I never got around to this one. Well, look, there are holes in my knowledge. There are imperfections. There are things I don't know. There are things I'm ignorant of. I have shortcomings. I have flaws. I have biases, right? I have prejudice. But I go into this conversation with a kind of confidence that's based on just knowing that I am doing the best I can. And I have years and years and years behind me of hard work, of trying to do the best I can. Now, guys, this thing with vegan activism, right? We can ask Richard, are you now or were you ever doing the best you can? Really? Really? Are you trying to save the world? Are you trying to save the animals? And I talked to him. I mean, I'm sorry, there were different points. I remember I was in Chiang Mai and I asked Richard, like, dude, would you come back to Chiang Mai? Like, we will look back. He'd never been there, but I'd been there repeatedly. Dude, would you come and join me in Chiang Mai? I can introduce you to other vegan activists. You can make a difference. And he was basically like, no, he was too lazy. He wanted to keep on living the same life with video games and dogs and stuff. Like, taking a vacation in Chiang Mai to go and meet other vegan activists, is that really doing the best you can? Is that really heroic or extraordinary? Is that even as much work as reading Xenophon or Thucydides or Aristotle? Like, really doing that? It's really nothing. When I was pursuing vegan activism, when I was trying to do that, I gave it 110%. I was doing the best I can. When I tried to do, and I failed. Okay, there's a sense in which every single area of my life I've had ambitions in, I failed, but I did the best I could, and I became a better person as a result. And exactly what's missing from Richard's life. And it does relate to his self-esteem. It does relate to his self-image. It does relate to his disregard for, his disdain for others, the way he has to belittle other people to feel good about himself, right? He has not been doing the best he can. And he hasn't developed into a better person as a result over the years and years and years that he's been on YouTube. So, guys, I see a lot of comments coming in. So I'm just going to take a moment to reply to some. Okay, so guys, there are a couple different questions asking about what is the benefit of this kind of reading? What is the benefit of this kind of education? I think one that's very succinct is, quote, what do you do with this knowledge? So shout out to you. Thanks. You've been here this whole time. I appreciate you being in the live stream. You've been here before. It's from a guy called Do You Want to Give Me a Kiss? For whatever reason, that's his YouTube name. So he asked simply, what do you want to do with this knowledge? You're asking the wrong question. The question is, who do you want to be? Who do you want to become with this knowledge? Okay. What you do changes who you are. What you learn, what you understand changes who you are. Okay. Sometimes gradually, sometimes suddenly. You want a great example? Veganism. People live their whole lives. I remember my mother was above 50 years old, and she did not know the difference between a bull and a steer. And she was shocked and horrified when I explained to her that animals are castrated on farms. Not a few hundred, not a few thousand, millions, billions. Oh, gee, what do you think the difference is between a wild boar and a pig raised in confinement this way? Guess what? Castration is a huge part of it, guys. Very simple things. People don't know what a hot dog is. As a child, you're given a hot dog. In Japan, little children are given sushi, and generally they're often given fish that's been cut into little red squares, but it doesn't look like an animal. They don't know it has no eyes. It has no face. They just encounter this as a little red cube, and we encounter the hot dog just as this faceless morsel, and you may not think about how that's produced. You may not think about what the consequences are. Okay. And what you know changes how you feel, right? And then how you feel and what you do and what you learn from there, what happens next in that cycle of suffering and that cycle of learning, that changes who you are. Okay. I am not reading this book in order to do something, right? This is not a manual, right, for how to assemble a car engine. All right. I'm reading this manual because there's somebody I want to be. And I now, in my 40s, get to live with the uplifting joy every day of already being the person I want to be. I already embody all the virtues I aspired to have back when I was a teenager. And it wasn't easy. It was a long, hard, harrowing process with unbelievable heartbreak and disappointment involved. Now, guys, sorry, I'll give this as an example because it may be one you can relate to. It's not something Richard is ever going to do. It's not something Vegan Gains is ever going to do. He seems to have no interest in doing any activism related to veganism anymore. I don't know why. Okay, so you guys know, there are terrible humanitarian crises right now connected to Syria. There are some connected to Afghanistan. If you were talking to me one-on-one about what you could do, very few people do, but once in a while, people have a kind of consultation with me because I have a background in humanitarian work, I have a background in politics. You know what I mean? Like the ultimate question is, who are you going to be? Who are you going to become by the end of this process? Because it's not going to be the rest of your life. Like it's not reasonable to think you're now going to move to Afghanistan and never come back and just sometimes it's possible. It's possible you go to Afghanistan, you stay till you're 90 years old, and that's it. You're done. But the odds are this is going to be a period of your life where you're involved with humanitarian issues in Syria or humanitarian issues in Afghanistan. But for you, not just some person at random, for you specifically, how are you going to develop? Who are you going to become? That's more important than asking, what are you going to do? Right? And you're going to learn things that aren't written in any book. You're going to learn things or that may be incidental or unintentional, to the book. I was just reading this book about the assassination of Martin Luther King Jr. And there's a long interview with one of the assassins, one of the guys who actually participated in carrying out the assassination. In case you didn't know, it wasn't just one guy. Big surprise. But part of what you learn in reading that interview is just what it was like to grow up in Memphis at that time, and what it was like for him as a career criminal who never read a book in his life. He talked a lot about his life and his perspective on the world. And he talked about what it was like having a father who was openly racist in the Deep South, a father who was a member of racist organizations and so on, and how he sees it now. So, I mean, that's not what the book is about, but that's part of what you benefit from. In the same way, even if you define your humanitarian agency or humanitarian project very strictly as just being providing food to starving people, you're going to learn so much else in doing that. You're going to learn what it's like to be on the border of Afghanistan or the border of Syria and to try to get your truck repaired. You know what I mean? And then you deal with all these human elements you didn't see coming. Now, if you have some human decency, which Vegan Gains does not, if you have some sympathy, if you have some depth of empathy, right, then when you engage in vegan activism, you also learn this stuff too, right? You learn all this stuff from working with other people and hearing other people, including that other people tell you why they tried to make a vegan diet work, but it failed and they just couldn't do it. As stupid as that may be, I have sympathy for it. Like, I know what people are going through. People who tried to lose weight and they couldn't lose weight. People who tried to gain muscle and couldn't lose. Will you really work with them and sympathize with them and understand what they're going through? There can be so much that comes out positively from veganism or vegan activism as a humanitarian project. But of course, he does that. So I have some people joining the chat now who are just shocked to learn that Vegan Gains' channel has been deleted. It is probably temporary, but yes, as of this moment, Vegan Gains has disappeared from YouTube. And some of you are probably here just because you were Googling to see what had happened with this channel and why it had disappeared. Welcome to the crowd. We're kind of wrapping up and giving final conclusions here. I am reading the comments. I'm interested if you guys have something significant to say. All right. Vegan Gains, if you think about what his YouTube channel was supposed to be, and you can look at it in different periods of his channel, each one of which was derivative of someone else's influence, right? Like, he had a period of time where he was trying to imitate Ask Yourself and do these highly confrontational debates. He had a period of time where he was imitating this YouTube channel and that YouTube channel. But the higher aspiration that's there to actually have a science education channel and to actually respond to something like the death of this bodybuilder. So I'm sorry, to my memory, this guy died at age 49. And to really talk about that seriously and sincerely and say, look, guys, you may be making choices about your diet and it tastes good and it feels good. And people can eat a meat diet and they don't even get fat. You can eat, as this guy proved, this bodybuilder proved, you can have a high cholesterol meat diet and they're a bodybuilder, they look beautiful, or they're on the cover of Cosmopolitan magazine or Men's Health magazine. This is epidemic. There are tons of gorgeous people eating a meat-based diet or a high cholesterol diet. Okay. It may taste good. It may feel good. It may be that when you look in the mirror, you like what you see. But I'm here to tell you on my science education channel that notwithstanding all of that, what you're doing still fundamentally is bad and evil and wrong. And you know what? You could find out because, like Kevin Smith, you end up in the hospital with a heart attack. And it might be you never find out because you don't wake up in the hospital. You have that first heart attack and there never is a second heart attack. You never have a second chance because you drop dead and you never come back. And you know what else? You might live your whole life in a state of blissful ignorance where you never ask and answer that simple question every 4-year-old asks their parents, where does my food come from? What is this? What is inside the hot dog? Where does my food come from that's on this plate? Where you never get interested in that and you never take responsibility for it. you may never deal with the consequences. You may never suffer negative health consequences yourself, and you may never see the ecological consequences or the ethical consequences of the way in which you're destroying the world for your own ignorant, self-indulgent diet, you know. But this YouTube channel is here to shake you out of your indifference and really let you know in a meaningful sense that what you're doing is bad and evil and wrong. We need people on YouTube now more than ever who are positively motivated to do the job that Vegan Gains took on. But as soon as he had money, as soon as he had fame, he lost all interest in. He went into a downward spiral of self-indulgence, you know. And I close this video by asking a question, the same question I asked at the beginning. Who today is coming on YouTube with that positive motivation of trying to save the world? Who is coming out here trying to make the world a better place? You know, it can't all be about money. It can't all be about fame. It can't all be about getting laid. Someone has to be positively motivated to do the right thing just because it's the right thing to do. Somebody has to be making YouTube content to change the world or to help people in one small part of it. And I'm making this video to ask the question, maybe it's you.